Okay guys, I have been promising to do this video for, well, when did I make the Polytunnel? April, so 9 months I've been promising to make this video. Part of the hold up has been I started making it before I was doing the vlogging, so I didn't have very consistent footage. And secondly, I wanted to wait kind of the whole season before I made a video on it in case I kind of discovered any catastrophic design errors. And then pass them on to you. But the whole of the summer has gone past and it was fantastic, and we're now into January and stuff's growing really well in there over winter, so I feel it's now safe. Yeah, so let's have a go. I'm going to start with what we had before, which was this really kind of standard polytunnel. It wasn't expensive, and to be fair, it lasted us 3 years. With a couple of repair jobs in between. It ended up with battens over the top, but it did the job. Until it didn't. We had just one too many storms, and you can see the wooden battens on here. This is after it was screwed up into a ball and thrown over the fence. It was a complete write-off. So whatever we did, we were going to have to do something new, whether it was to buy a new one or to create something new. First job was obviously to dismantle what we had. I'm not keen on things going to waste, so all of this that was the old polytunnel was saved and reused, but you can see the wind just snapped it. It was a write-off as a polytunnel. But these posts ended up going into the ground to support the arches that I grow the beans up, and the cover ended up going to make a cold frame, which is now outside the greenhouse, and I will stick a link to that video at the end of this one. So once we'd got the old one down, we still had the footprint of where it had been, and I'd taken quite a long time to kind of level that bit of ground off, and it's really rocky around there, so I didn't much fancy taking that piece of wood apart and starting again. So we decided to go with exactly the same footprint as the old polytunnel, which is 3 meters by 2 meters. Wanted to change it around a little bit because how it was before, obviously a polytunnel is kind of long and then you've got the door at the end with the arch. I wanted to have the door on the wide side so that it was pointing into the allotment itself rather than you having to kind of go around the side. So that was really the only design feature that I had in my mind when I started. I had the base layout and where I wanted the door to be. So just roughing it out on paper, this is my 3 meter by 2 meter box area I've got. So it's just going to lift the front end and then put the door in the front. Full height door, window, door, struts across the top to keep it solid. The other side, because we don't need a door in it, is just going to be completely plain like that, and then this roof going in the opposite direction. Pretty simple. An important thing to say first off is that I didn't buy any timber to make this with. I bought the decking boards that made the raised bed inside later on, but to make the frame I just used stuff that I had lying around, which explains why some of it's a little bit higgledy-piggledy. First stage is making the 2 end pieces to get the angle of the roof right. So I built them flat on the grass, and then an important component of this build is having Mum to hold things up while I attach them. And then we had the basic box shape of our frame. And from this point, I had to work out what wood I had and hadn't got to infill. So the next day I got the 2 uprights at the back and the 2 uprights for the door in place, and had rested the 2 long ones across the top for roof support. By the next afternoon, I'd got the bottom pieces in and it was starting to take shape. And then we had the frame up. So the next decision to make was about the beds that we're going to have inside the polytunnel. I've never had beds inside a poly. We just used grow bags before, because part of the reason that we've got the polytunnel on that side of the allotment is that the trees behind, although they don't actually shade the polytunnel site because the sun's coming in from one side, the ground underneath is just riddled with tree roots. And over the years on that side of the allotment, we have tried to dig them out, and we've done deep beds and tried to put plastic in and all that kind of stuff. It just never works. The tree roots are supreme. So I didn't want to go down into the soil there. So what I needed to do was raise the beds up inside. Okay, the next bit to do is to work out how I'm going to cut the wood for my raised beds. The raised beds are double height decking boards, and each board that I've bought is 2 meters 40. So I've got to work out how to get all of these cuts out of 12 2 meter 40 boards. At the back, I've got C and D labelled. Now that's a 3 meter stretch, which is longer than a single decking board. Although I've got the cut down the centre there, I won't have it in the centre because that will form a weak point. So I'll choose C, for example, to be the longest and D the shortest, and then I'll swap them over. So the bottom layer will have C then D, and the layer above will have D then C to spread the load, so there's no single weak point in that back stretch. All the rest of them are under the 2 meters 40, so I don't have that problem. But I do have to work out how to cut all of these pieces of wood from a limited supply of wood. So the way that I do that is to list the number of boards that I have, which is 12 in this case, and then list the longest lengths I've got going down one side. I know each one of these boards is 2 meters 40, so I can put all of my measurements in there up to the 2 meter 40 point, and then I know my last two boards, my C boards at the back, are going to be 2 meters 10, because I've got enough from another spare board to cover the last part of that. 90 centimetres that will need to go on the back of them. And here they are, all labelled up with where they go inside the frame.
Difficult over there, but I'll just put a board along the top and kneel.
Okay, that is the structure of the beds in. Double depth. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. As it stands, they're completely just floating loose in there. They're not actually attached to the frame in any way, shape or form. They're deep but not too wide to be able to reach in. So once the beds were in, it was time to get the plastic on the top. Now, one of the problems that we had with the old polytunnel is because the cover was like a bag type cover, you know, so you build the frame and then the whole thing just goes over the top. And it would just rub slightly because it was moving in the wind. And it was those rub points, which is where it started to tear, and then it just kind of grows the problem because the wind gets in and can really pick it up. So I was aware that I really needed to stop anything rubbing. And the solution I came up with in the end was sticky back foam. I'll put the links to where I got it from in the description underneath because I bought two types. The first one wasn't going to work. It was too stiff. It wasn't going to fold around the corners. The second one I bought was an absolute charm, and I'll put the links to that underneath because it was brilliant. I've got quite a lot of left over, and I'm going to be using it for all of my poly covers that I make in the future because it's a gem. So this is it. Really flexible and really sticky. So I've gone around all the corners and gone over the patches where I've got the L brackets holding the wood together. Just peel off back like sticky back plastic, but foam. Absolutely perfect. We're also using it to cover up the metal plates that we've joined it with, because the metal plates will get really hot in the sun and could damage the plastic. And then it's time for the plastic. So having covered up the corners like that, we are also helping stop any rips happening. And we basically have just wrapped it like a Christmas present, straight over the top. And then I'm using a stapler to staple it straight onto the wood, stretch it tight. And then the corners are done just exactly like you would a Christmas present. So pulled out straight and then folded back onto themselves and then cut, because we don't want all the excess plastic. From the same place that I bought this plastic from, they do a polytunnel repair tape, which is what I've been sticking all these edges down with and then stapling straight over the top. Now, excuse the limp. In the meantime here, I twisted my ankle, so I'm now hop along Sally. So we've just sealed this totally like you would wrap a Christmas present. And now I'm going to cut the doors. So it's going to come in from both corners, straight down the centre, and then I will fold it back and staple it against the wood. I'm going to do the same for both of the windows on either side too. So I'm using the staples in kind of two respects. Firstly, I'm using them just as a tacker. So while I'm putting this together, I'm just tacking the plastic in place. And along the outside, I'm going to use very small screws with a plastic washer on them to hold the plastic against the wood. That will do two things. It will stop the flapping and it will also stop the rubbing. So as the plastic moves very gently in the wind, it will pull away from the staples. So that's just giving it that bit of extra strength. But the staples are just brilliant for getting the thing together. Okay, this is part of what I neglected to film, but after I'd got the plastic on, I then basically put a skirting board of decking boards all the way around the outside, so it just is then screwed into the wood, which screws the plastic down really, really tight. And I left it long and it's gone under these paving slabs. Okay, so you know right at the beginning I said that we decided to use the footprint of the old polytunnel because I'd already made that level. What I'd forgotten about is that I'd actually only made the perimeter level. So the wood that the polytunnel had been sat on was dead straight, but the inside was a little bit wobbly still. Didn't make any difference because what we were using in there was like grow bags and pots, so it made no difference. But when I went to build the raised beds into the new polytunnel, as I was making the tops of them totally level, gaps were appearing underneath where the soil was dipping down. This didn't matter. As I was building it, I was just propping it up with pieces of wood. So I ended up using the pieces of wood that I'd joined the double height decking boards together as sort of legs. So where I've got my double height decking boards and I had put a piece of wood on the back, as I was levelling up the decking boards, I unscrewed this and just levelled it down slightly so that it was a leg essentially for it to stand on, just to keep the top level. It didn't make any difference that the underside had small gaps because we're going to line the beds with plastic. We're going to line them for a couple of reasons. As a little bit of protection for the wood because they're open on the other side and it's going to be quite humid in there, just having that bit of plastic for a bit of help, and also to maintain moisture levels in the soil because the wood just suck it out. So yeah, we then lined the beds. So yeah, once again, it is trusty staple gun to the rescue. We've just stapled all the way around the very top of this bed. So cut it about 25 centimetres wider than it needed to be, so it just forms a curve. I've also put Enviromesh over the two open windows, so just stapled on the inside. That would just give it a bit of added protection in here and means that we can open it all up for a draft without sort of allowing everything to fly in. So yeah, plastic in, Enviromesh on. And now it's time to cover the windows. This was something that took me quite a long time to kind of decide what I wanted to do. As I've said before, I'm making this up as I go along. And so we just had some excess plastic. I didn't know whether I was going to have like a shutter affair or what. But I saw that Alex from the Essex allotment, this was last spring, before he had his farm, he was fixing his polytunnel door that had come apart and he used Velcro. So I thought, oh, what a marvellous idea. So I'm just making these windows little Velcro roll-up jobbies. So again, it's just the stapler. This time it's a domestic stapler rather than a flat stapler, and I'm making a seam along the edge of this plastic that just fits nicely onto the window frame. So the Velcro, the harsh side attached to the frame of the polytunnel. So sticky side off, just all the way down the frame, down both sides and across the bottom. And then I'm just going to staple that onto the wood because obviously the sticky probably won't last all that long, so it needs a bit of help. Then I'm going to stick the soft side, so the other part of the Velcro, onto that without taking the sticky off. Straight down there. I've got this Velcro listed underneath as well. It was an Amazon purchase. It was a great one. Once I've got the Velcro in place but not stuck to the window itself, I'm going to seal the top of this window with the polytunnel repair tape, which I've also sealed the edges of the poly with. And then on top of that, I'm going to screw in a batten with 4 screws, 2 in the middle flush and 2 on the ends still sticking out. Then we are pulling the sticky off the soft side of the Velcro and sticking this window down on top of it so we know that the Velcro is in exactly the right place. Then it's a case of peeling it back off, but with the soft side of the Velcro now stuck to the window frame, and I'm going to run around it with the stapler again to secure that to the window. So this is about as simple as you can get for window and door opening. I'm just going to tie little pieces of string on the 2 sticky outy screws at the top there, roll it up, and 2 little loops for your pole. Keep the window open. Look at that. A beauty. So basically, guys, that was how easy that polytunnel was to build. It was so simple. The only thing that was then left for me to do is, because it's a slopey roof, I'm going to put a drain pipe along the back. You will have seen this in the vlog. So the back of this polytunnel is sloping downhill the opposite way from the way that I want my water to run off my drain pipe. So when I put it on, it looks really wonky, but trust me, it's only a gentle slope going uphill, if you see what I mean. If you watched my vlog with this section in it, you will be able to catch a glimpse of those poor people suffering through a confidence and motivational lesson in the field behind me. Poor guys, that was bad. So yeah, there you go. That is my drain pipe. The next thing I had to do is just attach it to the water butt. You can see this is the slope going down, which is why it looks like it's on such a dramatic angle. And this is actually the last job I had to do on the polytunnel, and I actually did this quite a long time after I'd finished the poly, but I'd been meaning to do it from the beginning. But we're trying to include more ways of capturing water on the plot, but both our shed and the little metal shed that's next to this are completely under the canopy of trees, so they get almost no water on top of them. There's very little point having a guttering system from them. But this one, the trees are quite far back from this, so I'm hoping we'll be filling this water butt up pretty soon. So that is how I made the poly house. As I said before, I'd kind of held off making this video until I'd had sort of a whole season growing in there, so that I could iron out any problems if I was kind of sharing how to make it. And then after I'd done that, I suddenly realised there was a glaringly obvious problem. I wanted to make sure that I'd kind of already sorted through that before I shared it, but actually no problems at all. And we had the most successful year we've ever had growing undercover. It worked brilliantly. Yeah, it was a real joy. I'm so pleased with it. So obviously this was a Saturday special. I'm going to have my vlog out on Tuesday. If this is the first time you're watching me, I have a vlog come out every Tuesday about kind of what's going on the allotment every week. And next Saturday, I'm going to do kind of like the second half of this video, which is how to rig up the inside of the polytunnel with all the wires for the tomatoes stretching across from roof side to roof side, and then with the two hangers in the middle, so that you can have two layers of plants inside and all strung up and looking snaz. It worked really well. We managed to grow 17 varieties of tomato in there round the back in a U shape, and on the inside all the chilies and all that kind of stuff. So I will talk about that next week. So if you want to get an alert for when that video is live, if you hit subscribe and there's a little ding dong bell next to it, that will tell you when the second half of this video is up. I hope this video has been really useful to you. Don't forget that all of the bits and pieces that I've used are linked underneath. So that is the Velcro and the foam and the plastic that I used on the polytunnel. Yeah, so sorry it's taken me so long to get this video out. I hope it was worth the wait. And like I said at the start, I'm really hoping to see a whole army of copycat polytunnels coming in 2021. And in the meantime, I will see you as normal on Tuesday. Sadly, I can't do cheers, it's still dry January.